Hello and welcome to another episode of Stay in Your Lane. I'm Mark,
And I'm Marty.
and we're glad that you're here. We would love for you to like and subscribe, and we're excited to dive into another casual conversation on sober living.
Yeah, and I'm also going to ask our viewers to please share our video and with family and friends. It doesn't necessarily need to be with somebody who has an addiction, but it could also be to the support network people of a person that is going through an addiction or trying to get sober, because we share a lot of casual content. It's non-intrusive, and if you've checked out any of our other shows, I think that you will get a good energy, a good vibe from it, because we're just two guys that have been through it, and we'd like to help others sustain sobriety.
Yeah. Thank you, Marty, for sharing that. Um, I had an idea that I'd like to start each episode off with a little bit of good news just to spread some positive energy into the environment. And so today I got on a website to look for something, and ironically, the first thing that popped up being good news is that Cracker Barrel is now going to be introducing alcoholic beverages to 600 of their restaurants. And this sparked a fantastic show topic for me today, because when I was in the midst of my alcoholism, I would not attend a restaurant, a cafe, anywhere that did not have a bar. And in my really kind of new sober life for the first 4 to 6 months, I would find new places that didn't have a bar. And I was kind of exposed to this whole other kind of life that was happening that I had excluded myself from. So I'm interested to talk about kind of safety nets and where we put ourselves socially to sustain our addiction versus finding places that help support our sobriety.
Interesting. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking, is this, once again, big business trying to capitalize on, people's addictive behaviors, by a family restaurant like that? I'm just like blown away that all of a sudden they're adding alcohol.
Yeah,
I,
I totally agree. I was so happy when I found this, not for the fact that they're adding alcohol. I support business doing whatever they need to do to increase their business as long as it's ethical and fair and respectful. Um, I think the the thing that popped into my head that was alarming is that alcohol has become so socially accepted in our culture that a family restaurant that has been surviving for 51 years in business without it is now introducing it into the mix. And
yeah,
I think that it's a head scratcher for me.
yeah.
Again, I pass no judgment. Everyone is responsible for themselves and they can make their own decisions. But I think it's so ironic that we're seeing institutions that have been around for so long that are now getting on the alcohol bandwagon because it's becoming or is so socially accepted.
It's a head scratcher for you. Think about how much of a head scratcher it is for the servers at that restaurant, or the managers who don't have to deal with um, people who have been drinking, and people who drink too much, and that they may go to work because it's kind of their safety zone from if they have to deal with somebody in their private life who has an alcohol addiction. Like, I'm just thinking of the whole gamut of this. Like, if I was a restaurant manager, and I worked at a thriving business that didn't have alcohol, and now I've got to deal with, potentially having to cut people off, or asking them to leave. And I mean,
Right.
gosh, it's just that is like mind blowing.
Right, exactly. Well, and I went to dinner by myself last night. And that's one thing that I so enjoy doing. I didn't feel like cooking. I went down actually just to Longhorn Steakhouse and I sat at the bar and I had a steak and a baked potato and I ordered a Diet Coke with a lime. And I had a moment where I pat myself on the back and I thought, look at the progress I've made in the last 2.5 years. Like, I used to sweat and get anxious when I was first sober about what am I going to do? What are people going to think of me if I order a Diet Coke? And I felt so much strength last night when I sat down and did that. And I had absolutely no desire to drink. And I just love that I can still do something that I love, which is going in. I love the energy and atmosphere of the bar area in a restaurant. I think in the midst of the pandemic, it was nice to see people and people were being social. They maintained their social distance and all that good stuff. But I feel comforted in the progress that I've made in my recovery.
If I could add something to that, because I think that a lot of us feel that same way, especially not only by yourself, but in a group environment where you're meeting up with 4 or 5 or 6 of your friends, that everybody is ordering some type of mixed beverage, and then it comes to you and you're like, oh, and you order that Diet Coke or iced tea, and then everybody's like, you're not going to order a drink, and you then have to explain or say no. The uncomfortableness that comes with that can be at first a challenge, but I think over time, as you do that, and people are like, um, you wear it as a badge of honor, a strength. So
Correct.
when people say, "Oh, you're not going to drink with us," and no, I'm not. I'm just going to order this, and they ask you, and if you get to the point where you can just comfortably share your story there, like boom, I used to have a problem with it, but now I don't, right? And you're going to be surprised at the encouragement that you get from people. And I think that realistically, what's happening too is that some people that are secretly battling their own addiction will potentially see you as a positive force, and maybe you'll give them the courage to do it for themselves, and without even having to speak about it.
Absolutely. I think it's such a great point. I'll never forget how uncomfortable I felt for months when I stopped drinking. And it was, again, I was fearful of what other people were going to think of me. But the more strength that I got in ordering that Diet Coke with a lime or a soda water with a lime, it's now second nature. So I encourage everyone, stick with it. Find your beverage of choice that gives you comfort and, you know, just you might have to do it 10 times, you might have to do it 10,000 times before it feels like second nature, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, because I think it takes more courage to not order that drink than it does to order the drink.
Correct.
In really, for a lot of us, I can't speak for everybody, but really what the alcohol doing was covering up my insecurities. I was using it to drown out my insecurity, and so by me not ordering the drink, I feel much more secure. And
Yes.
before, when I'd order the drink, I thought it was that I was just being part of it and securing my placement in whatever was going on, but in actuality, I was just drowning out my insecurities.
Right. And I find that the little bit of social anxiety that I deal with, I find that not drinking actually helps me with that. Because again, if you haven't watched our episode on time and presence, it's a really great one. But I find not drinking, I have such clarity of mind that I'm a lot more engaging with people. And so I ask questions and I'm so much more present in the situation. And I walk away with my emotional cup full versus walking away feeling like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Or I wasn't even there because I was so intoxicated.
Yeah, and a great point there is that you're present at the event, but you're also present in the future, where you can look back at, oh, that was really a good time at this, at dinner last night, da 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 da. When you are getting totally drunk, and forgetting large pieces of the night, you can't look back on the quality of the whole time, right?
Right, exactly.
So you're also building your ability to remember and be present in the future.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So eh, there, and in one of our other shows, we talked about like uh, I have certain friends who, you know, they're not as supportive. They're still sincere friends, but when they're like, just have one drink, it's not going to hurt you, or why are you doing that? You'll be drinking again. Why are you wasting your time not trying to drink? You're going to get those people, right? And they have a right to their opinion. I think I mean, I don't look as that they're trying to bring me down or anything like that. They're trying to make themselves feel more comfortable about their drinking at that point. That's a big cry for help to me. That person's just crying for help for themselves. So I don't hold that against them at all.
Right. I think that's a good point. I think that if we in order for us to stay 100% healthy on our own journey, we can't try to take other people's stuff. And typically, if someone is begging you to have a drink with them, they need someone to make them feel okay about the amount that they're drinking. So I think that's a perfect example of kind of flipping the script on people. Typically, it goes back to Psych 101. When people are, trying to get you to do something, they're typically struggling with that themselves.
That brings up a great point. Yeah, I mean, this might be a little sidebar, but I think it brings a Corey and I were watching this horror flick last night because he loves those things, and one of the main characters who was, like kidnapping and killing people was trying to get this woman to join his band of hoodlums who were doing this stuff, and uh, now that you say that, Mark, I'm looking at that guy in a different light. Like he probably internally felt bad for what he was doing, and by getting these other people to join him, made it more normal.
Right.
Yeah. So uh, and I see that. Now that you say that, I could see that a lot in some of my behaviors of like, um, you know, when I was doing drugs and that those are the people that I had to hang out with.
Right.
Those are the people that I
Absolutely.
limited my circle with. Those
Yeah.
are the
And
people I was comfortable with.
correct. And I think if we kind of bring the conversation full circle and go back to the Cracker Barrel example, I would
No
never,
pun intended in crack.
right, crack or barrel. I'm surprised you weren't frequenting there. Um, to bring the conversation full circle, I remember when I was drinking all the time, I would never accept an invitation to go somewhere where there wasn't going to be alcohol, whether that be a restaurant, a party, whatever, because that alcohol was my comfort zone. In my newly sober life, a couple years ago, I found this whole new world of places that I never went to, coffee shops, restaurants that didn't serve alcohol. And I think that that is, in reference to another point you made in our last show, there's only a certain percentage of the population that drinks. So if you think about all the life that we're missing by only going to places that have alcohol, it's a really interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, definitely. My old neighbor, both his parents were alcoholics, and he will not go to an establishment that even serves alcohol, right? Because it's such a red flag and it's just a bad. It stirs to so many emotions for him that he just won't go to a place like that. So when I'm hearing and listening to your story about not wanting to go to places that didn't serve alcohol, it's just the polar opposite, right?
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
now, some of my best experiences are in a coffee shop. When we would go to the coffee shops up in Royal Oak, like what great experiences and what a buzz to see people working and people having conversations. And that's the life that I feel like I was excluding from my own. And actually, it's a full, joyous, present, content existence.
And I think you're sitting there when you're sober, like just what you're saying. You know what I'm reading from that? We were sitting there absorbing all this positive energy of what's taking place there, right? And you can do that when your mind is clear and you're available to absorb this.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
when you're not fixated on, I'm not going to go to a coffee shop and have 17 cups of coffee, but I went to the bar and I had 17 gimlets. So, it's an interesting dichotomy, isn't it?
yes. Back to the money part of all this is that we'll go and have a vodka gimlet for 7 or 12.50 or 7.50. Now a cup of coffee is 7.50 or 12.50.
Right, exactly.
But
Isn't that funny?
yes, but I
Uh,
don't waste the rest of my day when I'm having coffee for 12.50 versus a gimlet.
right, and then wanting so many more.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, what happens with situations like Cracker Barrel now introducing alcohol. I'm excited to see where that goes and how it affects their business. And I'm excited to see what other people think. I would absolutely love if people would comment on this video and like, what are your thoughts on huge chains that have been that successful for so long and now putting something else into the mix? I
I
would.
want to add something else to that. Is that I'd love to hear what the viewers have to say about the timing of this, since even the president of the United States in his 60-minute interview had addressed the fact of how alcoholism is up exponentially and drug addiction is up exponentially. And I mean, and now for a huge corporation like that, the timing to me is very interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
great point. Great
so
point.
I'd
And
love to hear it.
yeah, and I think that in the midst of something terrible that we're all living through right now, I think that it also supports the fact that alcohol is a natural coping mechanism for a lot of people.
Before I forget, when mentioning this being a terrible thing, I'd like to do another show topic coming up on, as far as, making the most out of a pandemic, moving forward, because there's a lot of good things also that I think that each of us have experienced through this. In going back to like our other show, we talked about time and, the luxury of time and the importance of it in this pandemic is affording us a lot more private time,
Right,
personal
absolutely.
time.
No, I think that's a great idea. Definitely we don't want to minimize the negatives that are happening with this pandemic, but I'm a huge proponent of trying to see the positives that
Mhm.
come out of any negative situation. So I think it would be a fantastic show idea.
Yeah, we'll do that. Please come back and check out that show because Mark and I will follow through on that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope that if you do go to Cracker Barrel and see their newfound menu items, hopefully people will still be able to play the little game with the golf tees in it responsibly.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. So thanks again. I'm Mark,
And I'm Marty.
and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Absolutely. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your family and friends and even your enemies about the show.
All right. Bye bye.
I